You're on Strat News Global and I'm Nitin Gokhale. In the second episode of Strategic Insight, in association with United Service Institution located in New Delhi, India's oldest think tank, we are bringing to you this program looking at the China challenge from various angles. Last time you saw the importance of Arunachal Pradesh and what India has done over the years to secure that place and also meet the China challenge in Arunachal Pradesh. In this episode, we are going to look at Sikkim, the tiny Himalayan state which was integrated into India in 1975 and has strategic significance when it comes to relations with China and of course the boundary dispute or boundary standoff that happens with China. So to look at the strategic significance of Sikkim in the context of India and China, we have with us a very distinguished panel. To my left, Major General B.K. Sharma, the Director of USI, and of course somebody who has great experience in dealing with the Chinese, especially in Sikkim and elsewhere, of course, through his career. He is somebody who started off as a young officer getting deployed on the Siachen Glacier way back in 1982-83 and of course then went on to become a Major General in the Army. And to my right, a familiar face for you, Lt Gen Devraj Anbu, a former Vice Chief of the Army Staff, and again somebody who has dealt with the Chinese both in Sikkim, Arunachal Pradesh and as Northern Army Commander in Ladakh. Welcome both of you, and General Sharma, if I can start with you. Sikkim is of course a very small tiny state but was in focus in 2017 when the Dolam or the Doklam crisis, the standoff happened with China. Tell us a bit about that sector of the India-China boundary and what significance does it hold for India?
Thank you very much for getting me to your show. Sikkim is strategically very important state for India. While its borders are very short, about 220 kilometers, but it is a strategic wedge between Nepal on one side and Bhutan on other side. And with both neighboring countries, it has open borders. If you look at towards Johnson Peak and you go further south, there's about 50 kilometers open border it has with eastern Nepal, and then you get into Siliguri Corridor. Likewise, you go to the further east and you look at the Tri-Junction area. Well, we call Tri-Junction Batangla Pass, but Chinese say it's the Gyamunchin Peak. Again, you have an open border. There's no deployment down to Siliguri Corridor, which is just about this thing. And then the whole state of Sikkim, the watershed, has an overwhelming domination over strategically vital Chumbi Valley. That's extremely important.
Which is in Tibet or China.
Which is in Tibet in China.
Right.
So both from defensive point of view and from our options point of view, it is extremely important. I would also like to mention here that Gangtok is the only state capital which is closest to China border in entire. There is only, you know, you have the Canggu Heights, and then suppose Canggu Heights are there, and then, you know, he is actually looking at the state capital. Now, this entire area lends itself to some kind of a asymmetric and collusive warfare. I'll tell you, if you look at the Nepalese border, Chinese have already made a road from Shigatse to Tiptila Pass, and from Tiptila Pass to the area of Ilam, Thaplijang, Jaffa, which was the heartland of Maoist movement, you know, we have Thimbuktu and all. All these places, Chinese have great influence. They have made roads, panchayat roads are being funded by them. They have created Maoist cultural centers. They're even modernizing their police stations. So it can become absolutely an asymmetric frontier for them to do some trouble and actually interdict a single axis which is leading to rest of state of Sikkim. Same is the state or towards, suppose they come to Jampheri ridgeline and Gyamuchin.
Right.
Then as the crow flies, you know, the Siliguri Corridor is just about 40 kilometers, which gives them tremendous strategic domination as far as this corridor is concerned. Right. Now, the corridor per se, the Siliguri Corridor, is a lifeline to state of Sikkim. But on the other hand, state of Sikkim gives certain depth to corridor, that if this state, you know, if it is not secured, then the corridor also gets affected. So this in nutshell is the strategic significance of state of Sikkim. Now, there are also number of flashpoints here, which could become a trigger for some kind of a conflict. And we know 2017 we had the Dokla or Dolam crisis,
yes.
And they have a sizable presence today along Mirugla Sinchela ridge line. You know, they
on their side of the
their side of this thing.
IB, yeah.
So they have sizable, but earlier they had nothing south of Yatung except some platoons deployed here and there facing the ridge line. So now they have a sizable presence there. Similarly, they have activated Nakula. You know, we had a standoff,
right.
And I have been privy to number of standoffs in the area of Finger and Plateau for 2 years.
And Finger in Sikkim, I must emphasize,
yes,
because you know, people will mistake it for Finger because which is now very common, not in Ladakh but in Sikkim.
Finger in Sikkim, the rim area where they wanted to construct road, they wanted to come forward to Finger 5 as we call it, but sort of we deterred them, and ultimately we've been able to prevail. But at any point in time, they can throw up these areas again. Like in 2007, well before Doklam crisis had happened, they had destroyed 3 of the bunkers which were on the forward slopes of Dokla,
yes.
Doklam there. So these kind of potentials are there for them to do anything. But more importantly, in any future conflict, I think they would like to secure Chumbi Valley in a very big way, because this is their critical vulnerability. So the whole calculus of our military equation should be, how do we ensure that we keep our Chumbi Valley options open?
That how we dominate, continue to
How
dominate.
we continue dominate, and it is a very good option for us to do some quid pro quo. Should we get under pressure in some other sectors and all, then I think we can really pay them up. And for that, Bhutan has also a tremendous significance. So this in nutshell, I would say there are, if you want me to elaborate what are our options, how we can do,
we will talk
we
about
could
that.
do it subsequently.
Yes, we will.
But
we will.
This in nutshell is the strategic significance of
true.
Sikkim.
So, General Anbu, you had commanded 17 Dev in Gangtok before you went to 4 Corps in Tejpur. Now, Sikkim, as General Sharma has rightly mentioned, has been generally the quiet area, but also has a lot of flashpoints, potential flashpoints. It's also abetting Bhutan in a way, and last time we spoke about Bhutan's importance to the coming sector. So here, what is the importance of Bhutan when it comes to the Tri-Junction and the Chumbi Valley and Sikkim as far as Indian deployments are concerned?
Just like General Sharma mentioned, that Chumbi Valley is a very narrow valley. As you come to the south of the Chumbi Valley, it gets so narrower that the width is just about 4 kilometers. And the entire Donkyala Chola ridge is dominated by us. Except one pass, Jelapla Pass, rest of the pass is held by India. And it's very, the terrain is very typical here. Like you see the fingers in Pegongso North Bank, here you have Amacho River coming down from Yatung down to the Chumbi, and you have the fingers going from the Chola Ridge into the Yatung, converging somewhere north and south of Yatung.
Right.
So he is segmented in those fingers and he has to come up.
Right.
Okay, it's a very narrow. Now coming to the importance of Bhutan, there is a similar ridge on the Bhutan opposite Yatung, that's called the MK Ridge, which goes down right up to the tip of the Chumbi Valley. And because he doesn't have the depth, strategic depth, if he has any offensive capability, then perforce he has to have some elbow room, for which he can only look to the east and not to the west, because west the ridges are very high and very well dominated and very intricate defenses are there. But whereas on the Bhutan side, it's not so. So, if he does try to expand to the west to get some elbow room, is where the Bhutan comes into play. And that's where the Mirgula Sinchula Ridge and the Dokla Plateau, where he is coming and sitting now, and then the Gamachun Ridge, all this comes into play.
But tell me, I mean, and I'll ask both of you first to General Sharma. The 2017 Doklam crisis, we said, and people have commented on this, that we deterred the Chinese from building that track that they were trying to build. They had to withdraw and go back. Subsequently, the Chinese have come in strength and force. But does that change any of our dominance in terms of deployment or the heights that we are dominating against them in Chumbi Valley? Or does it give him any additional advantage that he is now built on their side of the border?
See, the place where he is sitting presently, it doesn't give him any tactical advantage. It is a mere presence there that earlier this area was totally denuded of any troops.
Right.
So, it's a non-tactical deployment. But some troops are available to meet any contingencies. But no military logic will tell you that he would try and come down into Dokla Plateau, which is about 89 square kilometers, and then start, doing something towards Jampheri ridgeline and come towards Gyamachin, because that is not militarily, tactically feasible. The very strategic configuration of the ground is such that we are dominating from three sides, correct, overwhelming heights,
right,
and the kind of firepower that we can bring to bear into that area, that operation will get aborted right at the very outset. So, it's just a physical, non-tactical presence which is there, which will enhance its capacity to probably do patrolling and probably reinforce some of the areas where he is on the lower slopes.
So, basically, it's a battle of perception, it's a psychological kind of messaging.
Absolutely.
That we have come there. Although you forced us to go back, we are there.
Yes.
That's, I think, what has happened. So, that's reassuring to know.
Yeah, and one more thing which General Anbu has alluded. You see, there are two lifelines that he has into Chumbi Valley. One is the eastern feeder, which comes from an area called Shigatse, then you have Khambazong, Traxing Gompa, Chogala, and then it comes to Yatung, which is about class 18. The bigger road which is coming through Farizong axis into Yatung is about class 40. Now, south of Yatung, into this area of Doklam where his deployment is, it's a single axis, because that single axis has overwhelming domination from the watershed that we are holding.
On the west.
On the west. So, any build-up of troops south of Yatung is going to be suicidal actually, should he actually get into some kind of a military conflict with this.
Yeah. So, that's good to know, because 3 years after the Doklam crisis, there is a huge kind of spate of articles which have come that, what have you achieved? You may have achieved a tactical victory in Doklam, but strategically he has outmaneuvered you. Would you agree to that formulation?
I totally agree with what General Sharma said. It is a non-tactical advantage that he has got. If I was in his place and if I intend to do an offensive, first thing is I will vacate from there or I will go down as deep as possible so that nothing comes on me.
Right.
So, militarily it doesn't really augur well for him.
Right.
So, yes, in the normal situation, it's okay to prove a point. But come conflict, I think I would be more happy that
if
he has come there.
If he sits there.
Yes, I would be able to take a sitting duck.
Right.
And I would cause so much casualty on him, they will be so demoralized.
Right.
And they will never be able to step further from that.
So, that's something that is again, that's a good clarification coming from military professionals like you, because that has dominated the discourse actually, that he is built there, he is put in forces. But let me move away from that and look at the present context. After what he has done in Ladakh, what the Chinese have done in Ladakh, and then of course Nakula, and now, sort of in the future we don't know, because one assessment is that he is testing India's resolve and reserves and tactics and strategy, and how do we deal with it. Like, he's making Indian army run from one end to the other, this kind of thought process that has been articulated. So in that sense, I wanted to ask you, as somebody who's dealt with all these issues at the highest level, what should India's strategy be in sort of east of the chicken's neck, apart from what you do in Arunachal Pradesh? Sikkim is somewhere, if we are dominating, is that one place where we can actually do quid pro quo against the Chinese if something happens in other places?
No, we have very many places. As I mentioned in your previous episode, Tawang is a very good place where we are very well poised, sitting on the ridge line. Similarly, we have large number of areas where there are options for us to...
in Sikkim?
In Sikkim, yes. Complete East Sikkim and Southeast Sikkim, we are more dominating. It is not that General Sharma very clearly mentioned, Chumbi Valley is a vulnerability for China. I want to reinforce, it's a vulnerability for him. If he is doing anything, whether he is trying to bring a railway line to Yatung, or he is trying to bring so much of deployment onto Dokla in the Sinchula-Mirgula Ridge, it is his vulnerability that is forcing him to take all this. He knows that we are very strong. That there's no doubt about it. We can always take him on any stage. There's just no...
That's good to know. General Sharma, also, apart from Sikkim, just abutting Sikkim is the chicken's neck, which has been spoken about in various ways as India's vulnerability, that if you cut off chicken's neck, then the northeast gets cut off or comes under pressure. And there is also Bangladesh in that area. In that context, what should India's policy be while dealing with both Bhutan and Bangladesh? Bhutan, of course, you have mentioned, but Bangladesh is also a kind of something that we intangible kind of mix in the element.
Yeah, so I would like to first highlight the strategic importance of Siliguri Corridor,
Right.
which is very well known otherwise, you
Correct.
know, how it connects different countries and our states.
Yes.
But more importantly, there are a number of vulnerable, what we call this VAs and VPs in the military parlance.
Yes.
They are there.
Valuable assets.
Valuable assets and
targets.
points. For example, you have two air bases there, Hashimara and you have Bagdogra.
Yes.
You have an aviation base in a place called Shaugon.
Right.
You have multimodal connectivity. You have the fiber optics link.
Right.
Then you have your the oil pipeline which is coming
To Barauni from there, yeah.
oil pipeline, and then you have number of military installations, key military installations, logistic installations located there. I do not visualize any classic military threat to Siliguri Corridor per se. Many people talk about airborne operations and heliborne operations and blah blah blah. That's not feasible. The kind of air defense and other things that we have there, he will get totally mauled. But the threat is more asymmetric in nature. The non-state actors. You have this KLO organization there, which is that
Kamtapur Liberation Organization.
You have Rajbongshi
Yes.
insurgent groups. You have the GGMM, the Gurkha Jan Mukti Morcha movement, which has been simmering there from time to time. And you have Huji and such like other organizations which can come. Then Malda has become very unstable because of the demographic inversions, and all kind of illegal activities are taking place there. So some of these non-state actors can be leveraged by our adversaries, either through porous border of Bangladesh or Nepal, to create a little bit of a turmoil
And instability.
which will affect our mobilization and our access to some of these states, and it has its own economic losses. Unfortunately, we do not have a very cogent and coherent system of maintaining security in Siliguri Corridor. On one side, you have the BSF. On the other side, you have the SSB looking after Bhutan and Nepal border. Then ITB somewhere in the areas looking China. Even intelligence organizations are not very well, networked there. So as a result, there is nobody who is actually in charge of Siliguri Corridor.
Yeah, that's the vulnerability.
That is the vulnerability, that if tomorrow this corridor is exploited and activated through asymmetric means, then to begin with, we'll have that kind of a chaotic condition there. And I think it is right time for us to set some of these issues in order so that we are able to have sustainable security of Siliguri.
I get your point, but having lived in the Northeast for a long time, I have one more element which I always worried about is the monsoon and the weather and the flooding of the plains of North Bengal and adjoining areas of Assam, because the railway line gets cut off for a number of days, maybe at months together. And of course, then there are these smaller organizations that you mentioned, KLO, there are Bodos who launch
on the other side.
All of those. You've commanded in Tejpur, in 4 Corps. How are those elements looked at? I mean, there has to be some kind of a backup plan for these intangibles or threats, if not threats, at least the disruptions that are there.
Basically, beyond Siliguri Corridor, it is mainly the Assam.
Right.
So, having dealt with Assam government, I can tell you that they are much well prepared. They have a system in place. They have a war book where all agency gets coordinated, and there is a number of rehearsal takes place, and they are quite well prepared to take care of any interruption to the lines of communication. Coming to the Siliguri Corridor, like General Sharma mentioned, you have West Bengal, you have the Assam and Sikkim all mixed up. So therefore, there is someone who has to take stock of the situation and bring about some order here, like it's being done elsewhere. I think a little bit of a coordination and an effort from the Ministry of Home Affairs. I think getting all of them together with the states, I think we'll be able to solve it. It's not a very big thing, but it needs a little bit of time and effort to do that.
Because it also connects, Siliguri also connects Sikkim, Bhutan, Darjeeling and the rest of the Northeast.
Yes.
So actually, in a way, strategically, it is a very, very important kind of an area. And if we have to keep the Bhutan on our side, in the sense that they don't get upset with it, I think that's one of the areas which is used by the Bhutanese more frequently than anywhere else, I think.
From Phuntsling
to this place. So in that sense, you would have dealt with the Bhutanese, both of you. A bit of thing about the people-to-people contact, or what is changed in Bhutan because it's become a democracy. Do you foresee some kind of differences of opinion between the democratic political leaders of Bhutan and the royalty? To you, General Sharma first, and then to General Anbu.
See, I have been twice to Bhutan and have had discussions with the King 4, King 5, their PM, their Chief of Army Staff and all. I don't think this is a major factor in Bhutan as yet.
Okay.
There are people in the northern areas who are doing illegal trade with the Tibetans and this and that. That's a very minority sentiment that we should have better connectivity. Those are purely individual commercial interests. But the people of Bhutan per se have seen which way the Tibetans have gone. And they are very enamored with Bhutanese way of life. And I mean, no allurement and no kind of enticement will actually deviate them from that Bhutanese way of life, and that is very much secured by being aligned with India. But the larger issue is we can't take them for granted.
Right. Exactly.
They have those aspirations. The democracy will bring new aspirations, new hopes, and new conditions.
Correct.
And therefore, we have to be alive to those sentiments and realign our policies and don't take them for granted what we did to people of Nepal.
Right.
I leave it at that.
Okay. General Anbu, your thoughts? Bhutan, I mean, I hear some discordant voices sometimes from Bhutan, but generally I know that the Bhutanese say that we are south-looking, not north-looking. Is what is your thought also?
In Bhutan, I think we have a fantastic relationship at all levels. And 2-3 things which is very positive is the alignment of the royalty there with the government in power. Second, the democracy, as I said, is a fledgling democracy. They have their own challenges. It was brought in by the 4th king. He himself voluntarily abdicated his throne and wanted democracy to come up. So, naturally, he wants democracy to thrive in Bhutan. So, the fledgling democracy will have its own challenges of meeting the aspirations of the people. And in the people is basically the young people who have suddenly got exposed to the outside world through the social media, and their expectations are also like anybody else, any other young population. They want so much, all those things to be met. So, there are some conflicts at this level in the social media generated, but otherwise the people are, they understand very well as to where they need to really align, because geographically if you look at, they are all huge high mountains with no connectivity to, they always have to look at south.
India and south.
And the elder people in Bhutan, they have, and it's a very close society, I must tell you, less than 1 million population. Each one knows if he's living in western Bhutan, he definitely knows even people in the eastern Bhutan. It's a very close-knit society. Therefore, nothing can really shake if the foundation is very good. It's a transition. Probably yes, the social media, if it is manipulated by the adversary, can make a dent temporarily, but it is only temporary. The other point, sorry, before you close, the other point I want, the relationship between the Royal Bhutan Army and the Indian Army is phenomenal. I think one of the pillars on which the Indo-Bhutan relationship is existing is on this. So, therefore, nothing really can shake.
No, that's very assuring and reassuring to know, because that area is strategically extremely important, but not as vulnerable as say extreme heights of Arunachal Pradesh or some parts of Ladakh where there is no population. I mean, we suddenly won't know what's happening, but here that problem does not exist, and both of you have served in that area. It's good to know what's happening on that front, and that's all I have to discuss in this episode. We will come back again with more details on maybe next time on Ladakh and India's challenges in Ladakh, but that is something that is an ongoing crisis right now. Hopefully by the time we come and discuss Ladakh, that crisis would be over. But till the next discussion, please do keep liking us on our social media platforms, keep sending us comments and feedback, and keep watching Strat News Global. I am Nitin Gokhale.